The hour has come. May I speak in the name of the living God. Amen. The last of the sand is falling through the hourglass. 2 Greeks have come to see Jesus, showing us that the world beyond Israel is knocking at the door. With their arrival, the time for public preaching and teaching is over. There is no more time for parables that confuse, console, and cause listeners to ponder. No more time to point the way to a deeper awareness that the eternal, transformative, life-giving presence of God is breaking in here. There is finally, after all that Jesus has said and done, no more time. Throughout John's gospel, the phrase had echoed like a refrain, "My hour has not yet come." Jesus had said it to his mother at the wedding in Cana of Galilee. "My hour has not yet come." When his brothers taunted him to go to the Passover feast, he replied, "My hour has not yet come, but yours is always here." I respond to the will of God. I don't act impulsively in life like you. They sound like siblings, don't they? He eluded the authorities when they tried to lay hands on him because his hour had not yet come. And now at last, it has. The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. We know this experience so well ourselves. Now is the time to go to the doctor. Now is the time to apply for the job. Now is the time to stop thinking and acting like racism and sexism and misogyny and violence are someone else's problem. It's our problem, friends. King was right. Change doesn't just roll in on the wheels of inevitability. What kind of world do we want to live in? The hour has come. There are times in your life when you know, and you know that you know. For Jesus, just such a time had come. The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Glory doesn't mean for John what people often think it means. Then and now, conquest, victory, and spoils, not to mention confetti, rides in open-back cars. For John, glory meant sacrifice. For John, Jesus' crucifixion is his glorification. Because through the cross, Jesus returns to the glory that was his before the world began. The Word became flesh and lived among us until by the cross he returned to glory and sat down at the right hand of the Father. The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. There is no Garden of Gethsemane in John's Gospel. Jesus is saying in this passage, "Now is my soul troubled," is as close to the garden as John gets. "What should I say?" asks Jesus. "Father, save me from this hour? No, it is for this reason that I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name." And the confirming voice came from heaven, "I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again." Some of the people heard it, others didn't. It's always that way. Not all of us hear the heavenly voice. It comes for those who have ears to hear. It hasn't come for Jesus because Jesus knows, and he knows that the time is now. Now is the judgment of this world, he says. Now the ruler of this world will be driven out, and I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself. He said this to indicate the kind of death he was to die. John gives us no cause to imagine Jesus' corpus, his body, on the cross. The image of Jesus' brutalized body is not for him. For John, Jesus on the cross is Christus Rex, Christ the King. Christ crowned in royal robes, arms outstretched, reigning from the cross in glory. It was inevitable, says John. Jesus' availability to everyone, everywhere, required his death. Jesus himself explains why by pointing to the laws of nature. Very truly, I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. We don't think of seeds as dying in order to grow, but they actually do. When a seed sprouts, it's the end of the seed, as it was. The seed breaks open, the green point struggles toward the surface, and the seed itself is consumed as the life it contains nourishes the roots of the new plant. It's a transformative, costing business, and it is what seeds are meant for. I found a poem about this years ago called A Seed of Wheat. It goes like this. One wheat seed hid itself in the barn. It didn't want to be planted. It didn't want to die. It didn't want to sacrifice itself. It wanted to save its life. It never became bread. It was never put on the table. It was never blessed and served. It never gave life. It never gave joy. One day, the farmer came. As he cleaned out the barn, he swept away the wheat seed with the dust. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat. But if it's buried, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over. Our lives are the same way. Anyone who holds on to life just as it is destroys that life, it says in the Message. But if you let it go, reckless in your love, you'll have it forever, real and eternal. We are meant for transformation. We were born for sacrifice, not pointless suffering, but life-giving sacrifice, self-offering. This isn't the glorification of suffering for its own sake. It's the suffering of childbirth. We're meant to break open, not like a bomb, but like a seed, breaking open to give rise to the greater life within us. Jesus calls us to lives of significance beyond our own. It's what he's been pointing to and pointing out all along. Greater love has no one than this, than that they lay down their life for their friends. I am among you as one who serves. Love one another as I have loved you. Whoever serves me must follow me. And where I am, there will my servant be also. This is countercultural stuff, friends. It was then, it is now, and it grates against the worldly message to do what's best for the three of us. Me, myself, and I. No wonder the crowd turned against him. No wonder the disciples fled on Good Friday. If we're honest, we all hear our mothers calling about now. Sacrifice and service, yeah, love to, great idea, Lord. Maybe for someone else, can't, gotta go. The cross shows us that God is intimately connected to the suffering of the world. The cross does not glorify suffering. It glorifies God's transformative presence in the midst of our suffering. God stands by choice with those who have no choice. This is what God does. This is what Good Friday's about. And this is what we're called to do. To stand with Asian women and black men because Christ chose to stand by choice with those who have no choice. Who is being crucified today? Because that's where Jesus is. And that's where we're called to be. On Thursday, presiding Bishop Michael Curry issued a statement saying, wherever and whenever hatred or bigotry rises up and is directed to any child of God, we who follow Jesus of Nazareth and therefore stand up for love must act. We must stand up, speak up, and show up. This is how communities are made whole and life deepens and grows by us standing with one another in love and sacrifice. A friend told me this passage reminded her of her immigrant experience. We come here and work to send money to those who are back home. We sacrifice, she said, on their behalf. Such is the claim of love. Parents sacrifice for their children, and later children sacrifice for their parents. Doctors and nurses, teachers and ministers, artists and visionaries sacrifice for their callings alongside those who do justice and love mercy and walk humbly with their God. It is the work of generations to sacrifice for those who come after. You know, most of us don't get life handed to us on a silver platter. Accomplishments, worth achieving usually require some degree of sacrifice. The sacrifice of other distractions, for one thing. The sacrifice of lesser goods. The sacrifice of personal comfort and the wide and easy way for the narrow gate. How and what are you and I being called to sacrifice that greater life might come? You know the expression, what have you got to lose? It's said usually, go ahead and ask her out. What have you got to lose? Oh, go ahead and buy the lottery ticket. What have you got to lose? Holy Week asks the same question from a different angle. You want more life? You want more joy? You want your life to matter? You want to make a difference in this world for your life to be life-giving? What have you got to lose? What do you have to lose? Jesus knew the hour had come when he could no longer be confined to Judea, Samaria, and Galilee. The world beyond Israel was asking to see Jesus. In the flesh, Jesus' ministry covered an area about half the size of Massachusetts. It lasted at the most 3 years, more likely maybe only about 18 months. Only as the glorified and risen Christ would he be available to all people in all times and in all places through word and sacrament and spirit. For this, for us, he was willing to be buried in the earth like a seed, that he might give life to the world. I used to make retreats with fellow clergy at Holy Cross Monastery in New York, where I saw a most unusual wooden cross, Christ in robes on a cross of wheat, and in each outstretched hand, a loaf of bread. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a single seed. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself. The hour has come, my friends. Resurrection life is calling. What do we have to lose? Amen.